What's up, nerds? My name's Cory Bergeron, you are watching Cory Bergeron Recordings, and we are back with another In the Mix video, a video series where I open up the Pro Tools session of a song I worked on after it's been released and talk about the production and point out anything that might be, or that I think is interesting, in hopes that you learn something. On today's episode, I'm going to open up the Pro Tools session of a song called If I Could Unlearn You by a band called Anyone Anyway. Anyone Anyway is from Rhode Island. They are a very special band. To me, they're the first international band I ever worked with. I'm from Canada. They are from America. International. We worked on an EP back in 2017, and then in late 2018, we worked on a few songs, and this is one of them. Yesterday, they released this song with a music video. Reaction has been good. Now, the way this thing works is you have to listen to the song for this to make sense. So, what I'm going to get you to do is you're going to go down to the description, you're going to click on the top link, and that's going to be a link to the music video. I want you to listen to the entire song, and then you're going to come back to this video, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of cool things within the Pro Tools session. So go ahead, click that link, pause this video, and then come on back when you're done listening to it. Oh, you're back! So good. Love to see it. Okay, so in front of me I have the Pro Tools session for the song If I Could Unlearn You, or as the working title goes, Bendy. And let me just talk about the session real quick, just so you have an idea of what you're looking at. So first things first, the song is 158, that's the tempo. Then we have these markers over here, which just lay out the structure in a way that only Cory understands, because we have markers like bridge 1, bridge 2, clean bridge, heavy build. What is the real bridge? No one knows. Moving forward, we have these drums in red here, all the way down. We have special effects in purple. We have aux percussion in baby blue. I like to put the aux percussion near the drums because they are both percussion elements. After that, we have the bass guitar in yellow, acoustic guitar in orange, the rest of the guitars in green to blue to turquoise, all of in that world there. And then we have these vocals and vocal effects all the way down to here, and then just our master buses at the end. So let's go from kind of the top to bottom and work our way through, and again, the goal here is to kind of point out things that I think are interesting and kind of detail why things sound the way they do. So the drums were performed by my friend Max, and Max is a phenomenal drummer, probably one of the best that I've worked with. His grandfather was a drummer, his father is a drummer, so drumming runs in the family. And there's nothing too insanely flashy on this track versus other things he's worked on, but there are definitely some cool parts. So, without talking too much more, I'm going to let you listen to the drums, then I'm going to talk. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start before chorus 4, and you are going to listen. That's what we're going to do, listening to all the drums. Okay, so I'm sure you get the idea. Aggressive, fast, intense drums. Things that are noteworthy. So this drum performance is obviously performed very well. We recorded the drums in a large live room at Raven Street Studios here in Ottawa. As you can see, we got a gazillion microphones on it. If we move down to the bottom of the session, to the drum master here, you're going to see that there's these little volume bumps all over the track, and what that is just me automating the volume up on drum fills just to make them cut and punch. They sit where they sit within the mix, and then they pop out on all these fills to kind of just add the intensity and chaos to the track, which is very cool. There really isn't too much more to talk about with these drums. Pretty standard miking setup. Kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, hi-hats, both toms, ride, overheads, 2 stereo pairs of room mics, and then we also have a mono room mic. I did lay down samples. They're blended into taste, but without overshadowing what the organic drums are doing. Yeah, that's basically it for the drums. Great job, Max. You always make my job very easy. So let's keep moving forward, and we'll just jump over to the aux percussion. As many of you guys know, I like to layer my tracks with aux percussion, and Joey Demers was actually in town when we worked on this project, my right-hand man, and he is the aux percussion king. So he probably played all of this aux percussion. Here is an interesting sound that you don't hear on most emo / hardcore, post-hardcore sounding bands. That's what we call a vibra slap. Let's listen to that in context.
Keep me from speaking, to keep me from breathing. You did your damage and you left your debris. Now it's a fun.
Now, I don't own a vibra slap, so I'm sure we downloaded that from the internet at some point. Please don't send me to jail. Just a cheeky little sound that kind of plays off the start and stop rhythm in the verse there. We have tambourines in the chorus, the odd kabasa, shakers in the verse, things to just kind of add excitement, add little arrangement lifts to make parts hit, and that's that. Okay, so moving forward, the bass is yellow. The bass is always yellow. What are we looking at? We have 3 tracks here. We have a bass DI, we have a bass Kemper, and a bass bassman. And really quickly, the DI is just a DI. The purpose of it is just for the low end. I only want the low end from the DI. Clean low end. Before the pedals, just low end. The Kemper is completely dimed. It's like a 5150 or something like that, and it's completely cooked. And then we have the bassman, which is somewhere in the middle, and depending on how you're playing into it, kind of changes the way it sounds. When we're going all out, there's a little bit of grit to it, but when you roll back and you're playing softer, it cleans up. The reason why we recorded both of them is there's kind of parts in the verses where we want it to be more of the bassman, where it's more of a cleaner sound, and then in the chorus we want it to be full blown. So if we look at, let's go through each track individually. If we look at the bass DI, the purpose is just low end. So if I solo it at the chorus, just low end. There's nothing to that other than that. The Kemper, like I said, is dimed. I'm going to take off the EQ. That's probably cutting out all the low end. So, as you can hear, it's completely dimed. Together with the DI, once I put that EQ back on, this is what it sounds like. So the DI is occupying the low end, the Kemper is the distorted amp, and then I have all the low end cut out of the Kemper so they can work together. And there's kind of a hole in the mid-range, which is great because it leaves room for the vocal, the snare, and all that stuff. Now, something interesting that you might not do is also record a live amp with it. So we recorded the bassman, and the bassman's purpose is to just kind of be that in-between. So in the verses, we don't want a fully cooked, dimed 5150 sound. We want something that's a little more that sounds like an amp. So if you look at the volume automation, we actually turn the Kemper amp down in the verses and then the bassman up and let that kind of shine through. But together, let's play the chorus with all 3 of them and turn all these wacky plugins on. So you can actually really hear the difference that the bassman makes. Let me take out the bassman. Sounds good. The bassman adds like a little bit of liveliness to it. You can hear a little bit more pick attack and almost, it's almost undesirable sounding by itself, but in the context, within the mix of the other elements that create the bass guitar, it definitely adds something important to make it kind of cut and have that cool little clankiness. So that is the bass guitar, and that's kind of how we approached that. We used Nicky's P-Bass, which is this old P-Bass, and for some reason it sounds incredible. And if he ever sells it, I am going to buy it. But let's move on to the guitars here. Classic Cory Bergeron recording. We like to do quirky things. We like to throw acoustic guitars in weird spots, things that are a little unconventional. So if I play this part, this is clean bridge going into clean bridge drums. So it's really tucked in there. I'm sure through first listen you probably didn't even register. It might have sounded like a shaker or something like that. But if I solo this, this is a Gibson ES-125 from 1956. It's the studio owner's. It's kind of this crappy old guitar. It doesn't have any sustain to it. Let's see what it sounds like soloed. It sounds terrible. But it just kind of adds a vibe and adds some personality to the track. When it works, and you're usually using it with the purpose of getting some janky, lo-fi, crappy guitar sound. In the choruses, as we always do, and by we I mean me, I like to add acoustic guitars just to kind of thicken up and add some sparkle to the electric guitars. So let's move forward to the main rhythm guitars. I'm remembering that we used a Telecaster with humbuckers, and I think we used another Telecaster with single coils. We ran those into guitar amps and we ran them through pedals, but in the mixing process I was trying to get the amps to work, but I wasn't able to make the guitar amps sound the way I wanted, so I tried something crazy that I've actually probably never done before, but I just took the DI that I recorded simultaneously with the guitar amps and I put it through some plugins to see if I could make a better guitar tone, and I did. So let me play for you the main rhythm guitars. So, I'm not even sure if the band knows this, but basically that guitar sound is comprised of this black op distortion, which is basically just a rat pedal, and it's going into a clean, basically a clean amp, and I'm using this more as just like a clean amp and a cap. So I kind of use the philosophy of as if I was recording a real guitar, where I'm using the rat as the overdrive going into a clean amp, and then the combination of the two is the guitar tone. And then I probably had to notch out a gazillion frequencies, and that's how we came out with kind of the main rhythm guitar tones, which is pretty interesting. I was definitely a little scared when I had to kind of resort to that, but soloing them A-B against the actual guitar amps, this sounded better, and unless you watch this video, you would never know. And I have no issue using plugins for guitar amps. I have a Kemper. You know. Welcome to 2019. Here we are. Another cool little guitar sound is the intro guitar, which is over here. Now, I think we used a room mic. So obviously the reason why we made the intro guitar sound like that is just to give it some personality, as well as to make it smaller, so when everything kicks in, it kicks your ass. And the last thing I'm going to touch on for guitars here is the outro of the song. So the outro is a breakdown. It sounds a lot like this. And I'm not a huge fan of like really sterile, tight guitars. Specifically for this band. I think the intention of this breakdown is to make it sound chaotic and noisy. So what we did is we actually tracked the guitars in the live room. I put room mics up on the guitar cab, and I kept the room mics, even though I didn't use the actual guitar amp in the mix. I used the DI through plugins. Because I recorded the DI, there's still the feedback in going into the pickups, so when I reamped it through the plugins, you still get the feedback. That was the intention. Basically, the point I'm trying to get at is I wanted there to have natural feedback in between all of the guitar notes, just to kind of add that live, chaotic vibe. So, let's solo these rhythm guitars. So it sounds good. And then these tracks over here called distortion. This is just the room microphone that I have like totally blown out, and it's just, again, to add more chaos to it. Solo, it's probably gonna sound pretty messed up, but hey! And then to add even more chaos over the feedback part, we added these guitar tracks that I labeled clown shit. at the time because sounds like clowns. And it comes in just at the end of the breakdown to add maximum chaos and intensity. So here are the breakdown guitars with clown shit. Let's move on to the vocals. So one thing I want to say is at this time we were working on a few songs and I was super impressed with all of the vocal performances that Nicky was laying down. I think he really stepped up his game and found what it is that he wanted to sound like, and he pushed himself to the limit, and I think that really shows on this track. If you're not a recording engineer, trying to add intensity and desperation and vulnerability into a track is impossible to do unless it's there at the source, so you need to have that killer performance for it to sound killer. Let's talk about the verse vocal here. Nicky, I'm going to solo this. Please don't kill me.
You had my mouth shut a while to keep me from speaking, to keep me from breathing. And you did your damage and you left your debris. Now it's a fun thing to me. It feels like a lifetime since I spoke. And you never listen, but if that's not enough, you went and picked your dagger up.
I remember recording this, and I remember being super stoked on that performance. The fact that it was just a performance, that it wasn't a bunch of takes comped together, it wasn't just some sterile singing the words and the melodies. There's personality in there. You crushed it. Another vocal part that I think really stands out as being, I guess, a highlight of these sessions is the vocal in the heavy build part leading into the last chorus. There's just it feels like at any point it could fall off, but he's just kind of riding out the performance and keeps it together, and it sounds awesome. So I'm going to play it in the track, and then I'll probably solo it and show you the effects used on it. So this is what it sounds like. Powerful. There's nothing else to say other than it's powerful. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to solo it, and I'm going to solo it with the distortion I add on it. It's the stock Pro Tools distortion, and I just used the Sound Toys microshift on it to probably add some stereo image quality to it. So I'm going to play it from the back half because I think that's when it picks up. So as you can hear, homeboy crushed it. There's nothing more to it. And the very last thing I'm going to touch on, which is kind of an Easter egg, because it's tucked in pretty low in the mix. But they wanted a harmony on one of the held notes after a chorus, but it was if you're going to do a major third or anything on it, it's way outside of a normal human's vocal range. So come mixing time, they asked if my friend Brian Stevenson, who was kind of hanging around the sessions, could hit it because he can sing ungodly high. So let's find those vocals. So this is without Brian. And this is Brian soloed. It sounds painful. This is everything together. So this is in the mix with the band Anyone Anyway, the song being If I Could Unlearn You. And if you have any questions about the production or anything you'd like to know more about, just leave me a comment down below and I will probably reply to it. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.